What are the rules about dating intelligence officers within the agency? I thought this would have been a huge no-no.
Yeah, it's actually much more common than people think. Well, again, our not so funny jokes that we tell on the inside, we often joke that the CIA is like the best dating service in the world because you basically have to lie to everybody else, but be honest with the people inside the building. You cut off ties with everybody else. So all those like clingy ex-boyfriends and those, booty calls and those hookups that you keep around just in case, when you go into the agency, you have to cut off ties to all of those people because every one of them is a security concern for you. So you kind of start fresh. So then you end up, meeting these people inside the agency. They're all very smart. They're all very interesting. They've all got great backgrounds. Nobody is distractingly attractive, like I was telling you before, right? So you end up having these very genuine relationships inside. And then you're like, oh, wait a second. Like, we can work on the same case, and then we can have dinner in the cafeteria together, and then we can go home and we can do whatever we want to do at home too. And all we have to do is not talk about work at home. Well, that seems easy enough. So there's actually a great deal of intramural dating that happens. There's a large number of people who end up getting married to other agency officers because your whole life becomes the world of intelligence. And if you have to, you don't want to go out and have, a happy hour with strangers because strangers are a risk. So you just stay in the building and have happy hour with friends in the building and whatever else it might be. So there's quite a bit of that happens internally.
I suppose as well that although you can't speak about work when you get home, you can be more liberal than you would be with somebody who has zero security clearance and isn't a part of anything. And you can you can speak to them in the cafeteria, presumably, about the jobs that you're doing, or if you're undercover or whatever. So yeah, I totally didn't make sense that it would be potentially an adaptive benefit to allow officers to get into a relationship together, because it's actually going to, I would imagine that you will have a higher churn rate or at least more conflict within a relationship if you do have to not only compartmentalize at work, but then there's another one for the person that you're supposed to be your all and everything for the rest of time, in sickness and in health, but not outside of the office.
Yeah.
It seems like an odd way or a difficult way to run a relationship.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. It's there's no convenience one way or the other. If you're inside, if you're undercover and you work at CIA, there's no convenient relationship to be had. Because if you're dating someone or married to someone who's not on the inside, they don't get you. They don't get the stress, they don't get the risk, they don't get the debriefing, they don't get to know what you're actually doing. Like it's literally, how was your day today? My day was fine. What did you do? Paperwork. You can't tell them any details. And you can't take them into the building, into a skiff where you can tell them all the details. It doesn't exist, right? But when you're dating somebody who's inside, now all of a sudden you at least know the same people. You have the same policies. You know the same structural changes. You have the same vocabulary. So where I may not be able to tell you the name of the North Korean who I'm stealing these secrets from, I can tell you I'm working on that North Korean case and it's driving me crazy. And you get me. You understand what I'm saying, right? You can actually give me a true platform to commiserate, or you can give me real encouragement. And that means a lot. The agency likes that because dating couples spend more time at work. Dating couples, they become two resources on the same case, and they're always culpable for what information they share. So if they break the rules, then they're in trouble. If they adhere to the rules, then they're supporting each other through the case. That's a win-win for CIA.
Very interesting. Going back to the conversation we had about Russia earlier on, how much of the discord that we see in the West at the moment do you think is self-generated by polarization because social media and echo chambers and blah, blah? And how much do you think are seeds that are sown by foreign actors, China and Russia and such like?
Yeah, so I can confidently say from experience that most of the noise that we hear is internally generated. The whole idea that foreign actors create narratives that cause discord is proven false in many ways. It's in case studies, it's in books that people just don't read. But it's also, it violates the core strategy and covert influence isn't to create a new narrative. It's very hard to create a narrative that anybody hears. The way that you actually cause discord or so miscontent is by just adding fuel to an existing fire. So whether you're Russia or China or Iran or whoever, when you want to cause conflict in the United States, all you do is add fuel to the existing fire. There's no lack of fires that people can add issue to, right? Whether it's the Snowden debate, or whether it's the WikiLeaks debate, or whether it's gender, or whether it's woke, or whether it's sex, or whether it's, whatever. I just found out about something called incel recently. There's 1,000 different things that you can just pay a marketing company to put a few extra ads out there that say incel is the worst thing ever and women should adhere to men. And then you pay the same marketing agency to send a second message that says, women are equals and, men who complain about women are dogs. And then boom, all you're doing is just pouring fuel on an existing fire.
I had a conversation a couple of months ago with a friend, Gwinder Bogle, and he's got an idea around fire hosing that in the modern age, it's so difficult to convince anybody of any particular one narrative. So the goal is to bombard people with so many narratives that they become despondent and nihilistic and give up, because at that point they are the most easy to sway into one particular. You have two responses basically. It's the, kick a dog, does the dog bite or does it give up? Well, either of those, when you don't deal with the biting, that's fantastic. That's going to be looting and riots and issues and whatnot. And then the despondency as well is going to make for an easier country to roll over too.
Yeah, it's interesting because the strategic benefit of it overall is still kind of in the theoretical stages. We've never seen in history a country that's able to just roll over another country by just devastating them culturally. Like cultural subversion is a theory with lots of real world evidence, but no real world proof of execution, right? So I agree with you. But then there's also the element of the fact that we're also all still, as much as we hate to admit it, we're all still adapting to a digital era. We're all still getting used to what it's like to have smartphones and smart TVs and, you name it, smart watches. So we are choosing to let ourselves be bombarded with information, but we're also choosing what information bombards us. So yes, we could put out 1,000 different narratives, but the algorithms in YouTube and social media and whatever else are only going to feed you the narratives that you engage with the most. So then you're going to become the most engaged with the narratives that you see the most frequently, which are the narratives that you already believe in the most. So that's exactly the problem with America. It's that once you've told YouTube what kind of content you like, they don't give you any other content. They only give you what you like. Once you tell Twitter what hashtags you like, that's what they keep feeding you whenever they want to suggest someone you might like. Nobody ever suggests the counter point of view, so it just drives this continued wedge between everyone.
One of my friends says that if you want to see into somebody's soul and work out who they truly are, look at their YouTube suggested videos. And I don't think that it's too far wrong. The algorithm on YouTube is the most accurate, as far as I can see, of serving me content. Every time I go on YouTube, there is 5 videos that I add to my watch later playlist, because I think, that's perfect. And that's, brilliant. World War II in numbers, how Hitler defeated the whatever. Yeah, that's perfect for me. And then there's something about MMA and whatever. One of the things that I find is kind of an interesting contribution here is that when we think about our relationship to technology and the difficulty that we have around marrying all of this together, I think not having a common enemy causes us to have nothing to band together about as well, especially when the enemy is internal. Because the tribalism, you see tribes relatively all the time, they're splitting off, fracturing. This group was against that group, but now this part of that first group is part of another part of that same first group. And that seems to be a very good way to waste the time of a country in not making progress towards anything meaningful culturally by constantly just repeating similar cycles and fighting against itself.
Or just letting a country distract itself, right? So I don't know if you have kids, I don't know if you've got nieces or nephews or anything, but anybody with children knows that sometimes the best way to give yourself a break from the kids is to just let them distract themselves. Just give them, if you give a 6-year-old an iPad and you tell them they can watch whatever they want to on YouTube, they will distract themselves and you won't hear from them for hours, right? If you give any kid under the age of 9, if you give them a bucket of toys, even if it's just the toys from the neighbor's house next door, if you give them a bucket of toys they've never played with before, they'll distract themselves. Essentially, that's all a country really has to do, is just give the tools to one country to distract itself. And in that process, they kind of, they're free.
If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip or here to see the full podcast episode.